the blockchain space is very self-referential right now, which means blockchain people are playing with other blockchain people because it's just easy right now. I'm really excited about breaking that self-referential cycle and bringing this idea of a decentralized, or just idea of a group of people that are interested in the same things to allow them to congregate and build community in the world that we live in today. Whether that's a community of local merchants in a city or a community of fans of a specific soccer or football or basketball team to be able to do things together and make decisions and vote. I cannot wait for us to start bringing, this world that very few select nerdy people, dare I say, are playing with into like the everyday sort of fabric of life. I pee my pants out of excitement thinking about that.
Hey everyone, and welcome to another episode of the GlobaliD podcast. Today I'm joined by Laura and Paul, two of the leads who just came off a very successful launch of a new product, the XRP MasterCard debit card. Before we get into that, Paul and Laura, do you two want to introduce yourselves? Laura, you go first.
Hi guys. As Alex said, my name is Laura. I am the Director of Strategic Initiatives at GlobaliD, and I handle a lot of product operations for new product launches. That's basically everything that's non-product, non-engineering. So everything from marketing to legal and compliance. Well, Alec kind of helps. But yeah, all the other bits.
And hi guys, I'm Paul. I work with product at GlobaliD with a focus on payments. So that naturally meant that a lot of the XRP debit card work was done by the payments team. And so we've been working on this for 5 months or so, which feels like 4 years. But we finally made it. We're here, and we're so excited to share with all y'all.
Awesome. Well, let's just start from the top. What exactly is the XRP MasterCard debit card?
It's pretty straightforward. So it's, again, a MasterCard debit card, funnily enough, that lets you spend any asset you like, whether it's fiat or crypto, and earn crypto cash back.
Sweet. Well, so, there's a lot of products on the market these days. BlockFi, I think, has a card. Coinbase has a card. A lot of them have rewards. What makes the XRP card unique? What differentiates it in the marketplace? Paul?
Yeah, I would say that there's one key thing that serves as a differentiator. We're not interested in just creating a debit card. The biggest difference is that the GlobaliD is a trusted engagement company, and we're trying to foster community. And so our goal is to allow any group of people to form a community where they can invite anyone and have some level of trust that people are who they say they are, and they can self-organize and create their own rewards programs, which happen to include their own branded debit cards. These rewards can include simple, fiat rewards for spending your money anywhere, crypto rewards for spending your money anywhere, or just merchant rewards, spending money at a specific, retail or merchant location or bar. At the end of the day, we think that identity is a combination of who you are, so what credentials you may have, whom you communicate with, and what value you hold. And making payments is just a part of how you use your value. And so there's a much bigger picture here of just allowing communities to basically, collectively actionize their expenditure power or how they spend money.
Awesome. It seems like part of the goal here is to make these products and services a lot more accessible. Maybe if you went back not too long ago, it might take you a couple years to start a card program. For GlobaliD, it took about 5 months, which we can talk about in a little bit. And it
Right.
sounds like now you're giving individuals and trusted communities the ability to create their own card programs in what, a matter of days, maybe?
Yeah, I mean, any party or group of people can today go on GlobaliD, create a community, invite people to that community, and create a branded debit card design in a matter of minutes, and start issuing that card right away. And then within a few weeks, our system will enable you to start issuing a branded debit card with your desired color and logo behind it.
So actually, Alec, your question raised a really interesting point, and Paul's response as well, which is kind of speaks to the heart of what GlobaliD is trying to do. So as Paul mentioned, GlobaliD is an identity and a trusted engagement platform, and what we're trying to do is basically empower people in all sorts of ways. So that includes empowering them to create an identity that is self-sovereign, that belongs to them, where they maintain control over their identity and over their data in the form of credentials, which are verifiable statements about you and your identity. And all of this kind of speaks to all of what we're building with regards to the rewards program and the card and these groups really speaks to that empowerment, because we're trying to empower people not just to take control of their identities, but also to act in concert with other people in a trusted way, and as well to empower them to work together to achieve things that you can't necessarily do alone. And that's really kind of speaks to the power of community, the power of the internet, and we're just trying to facilitate those trusted engagements that help people work together to achieve greater things.
Let's talk a little bit about that empowerment and some of those greater things. If you're a community, why would you want to issue your own card to your members, right? Well, what are some of the use cases we're thinking about?
Yeah, there are a couple of things here where you can really leverage the versatility of this card. So the two use cases that spring to mind in particular are, one, being able to fundraise for a cause that you care about. So one of the unique features of what we call our group card, which are these community-linked cards, is that you can take a portion of the interchange fees, which are basically fees charged to every merchant for card transactions, and put them into a wallet affiliated with the community, and then donate the proceeds to a cause that you care about. So it's a way of allowing people to support things that they care about, whether it's like environmental causes, political causes, what have you, and be able to support that cause without necessarily having to change their behavior. You can just support them by spending with a card as you usually do and know that you're doing good, or you're doing good for something that you care about in particular. The other use cases is what Paul talked about, which is that as a group, it allows you to harness your collective spending power to maybe negotiate better deals with merchants by setting up your own rewards program. So for example, if you are a member of a bike group, maybe a group of bikers can get together and work with bike shops, coaches, what have you, trip organizers around the world, and get those good deals.
Great. So it gives communities leverage. It gives them new funding mechanisms, and not just for charities, but communities have expenses too, and members have needs, right? All very cool. Let's talk about the origin story a little bit, because I think from my perspective, one of the amazing things about this project is that from conception to launch, that it only took about 5 months, and I would presume some of that also has to do with a lot of the sort of building blocks that GlobaliD has been developing over the years. Paul, do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I think there are three things to call out here. Yeah, it took 5 months, which again felt like 3 years, but once I take a step back and think about it, it's actually pretty incredible. And so first off, like you mentioned, GlobaliD has been working on a sovereign stack for a long time, a few years now. And that includes things around identity, credentials, verifications. We can throw buzzwords all day. But that stuff is really important just to build a foundation of identity and trust, because almost anything that involves payments inherently involves some concept of identity. So that's the first thing to call out. We've been working on identity and this sovereign stack for quite a long time. So kudos to the GlobaliD team for doing that. Secondly, we've relied heavily on a few partners to jumpstart this process. Namely, we've been relying on our partnership with Uphold for a custodial wallet, and Apto Payments for issuing these branded debit cards. And we can get into that in a bit. Laura can speak to that. But that really has allowed us to just focus on sort of tying these three things together, right? The debit card aspect of Apto, the custodial wallet aspect of Uphold, and this sovereign stack that GlobaliD has been building. And so that really sped things up quite significantly. And then thirdly, we've got an amazing payments team and other folks within the GlobaliD company and ecosystem that have really helped us and have bent over backwards time and again to bring this to life. So massive kudos to the team there for literally staying up late, waking up early, and folks all around the world to bring this to life. But I think that's why we're able to move so quickly and just build sort of this first reference implementation of where we want to go with regards to community and payments.
And here we are. Congrats.
And here we are.
So one of the things that I think really exceeded expectations with this particular project was, the community response, right? There wasn't a huge marketing campaign. We sent out a couple tweets, and in the first few days got 25,000 people on the wait list. Incidentally, many of those people are not from the U.S., where the XRP card currently works. What are the plans for international expansion? Because it's one of the top questions that we get online.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So just to give a little background about how MasterCard is administered, it's essentially done on a regional basis. So they kind of have different processes and different permissible partners for every region and every country, quite frankly. So whichever country you want to enter into, you basically need to find a set of partners and integrate with them, not only from a technical standpoint, but from a business process and compliance and legal standpoint. So it's essentially an entirely new project every time we want to expand into a different country, which is why we've been trying to, not trying to bite off more than we can chew, but do it sequentially, starting with our home base, the U.S., and then expanding out slowly from there as we work things through. So now that we've launched the U.S. card, we are going to look to scope other regions and other countries. It's going to be another larger project, so it's going to be more of a medium term than a short term thing. But it's something we are actively looking at because we are GlobaliD and we're shooting to be global.
So, Paul, earlier you mentioned that GlobaliD has become a community-oriented company. And, I think a lot of our followers and fans out there have always sort of seen GlobaliD as an identity company, a self-sovereign identity company, owning your data, etc. Mm-hmm. But when you do think about it, right, your identity isn't just your name. It's not just your birthday. It's also what you buy and spend money on. It's the people you hang out with, right? And there's that saying that you are the five people that you spend the most time with. Do you want to expand on that idea a little bit and give our listeners a sense of what it means for GlobaliD to be a community focused company?
Yeah, let's give this a shot. So Laura and I have been here for 2 years or so, either just above or just below 2 years. And it's just been fascinating seeing us, GlobaliD, go through this are navigating this idea maze of what we're trying to be. Because you're right, GlobaliD is an identity company. An identity, when we first joined, was all about privacy of your personal identifiable information. And then we realized that, actually, your identity is more so about trust than it is about privacy. Privacy is certainly baked in, but there's this bigger concept of trust. And then we realized that your identity, as you were sort of getting to, was very much dependent in the given context of whom you're communicating with. And when you're interacting with people, Greg has this famous saying, Greg Kidd, our CEO, that identity is just the permission to act, or the ability to act. At the end of the day, you're trying to use that identity to do something. And I have this belief, and I would say GlobaliD has this belief, that if you look at identity through the lens of the ability to act with others, there should be millions more communities that should exist in the world. But it's just too difficult to, create a trusted community or trusted gated access based on the people you're trying to coordinate with. B, too difficult to sort of coordinate collective action once you get a community of hundreds or thousands of people together. And C, keep incentives high for people to engage in the way that you'd like to act. And so we've sort of seen this happen and have gone through this idea maze in my 2 years here. The XRP community is just the first implementation of a community of fans of a cryptocurrency that, they're not an entity, they're not a company of any kind, but just a decentralized group of fans of people that we believe there's so much power if you can find a way to collectively actionize their who they are and what they stand for. So, as an example, you can think of, we've now effectively gathered all these folks together and are providing rewards based on how this community likes to spend money. You could see us doing some more interesting and fun stuff with, partnering with other merchants that the community might like, so that they can spend money at those places as well. You can see us sort of doing some community wallet, or a group wallet sort of work where we might collectively actionize people sending funds somewhere and voting on how we use those funds. There's so much potential of how we can think about just communities and how people use their identities to be part of these communities and engage in these communities. It's just fascinating. And I bet you Laura and I can just go back and forth here and just come up with other examples of how people can use their identities and create all these different communities and way of organizing with each other.
Right. And, go ahead, Laura.
Oh, sorry. So if I can just zoom out a little bit, I think, when Paul's talking, he's really talking about the two ways that community feed into identity. So one is that community captures aspects of identity that aren't necessarily objective or verifiable, like a driver's license or your date of birth, as you guys said. It captures that aspect of your identity, which is who you associate with and what you care about. And those are really, really important bits of what makes you you. So that's one aspect of why community is important for identity. The other is that, as Greg says, identity is the permission to act. So in order for an identity to have value, there needs to be some permissible activity. So the example I always use is that nobody gets a driver's license just for the sake of having a driver's license. You do it because it lets you drive. So in a way, community is essentially bootstrapping a permitted activity. It gives you an environment where you are able to be trusted by other people. And that's what gives an identity value, because it lets you be trusted and lets you interact and lets you co-create value with other people and, do things as a collective that you wouldn't necessarily be able to do without that identity.
Right. It's not just about having an identity, right? It's about what you can do with it. I think a lot of what you're talking about also, sort of ties back to a term Paul used, which I'm sure will be new for a lot of people, which is the sovereign or sovereignty stack, right? Which has the identity layer, it has the wallet and money layer, and then it also has the communications, the social, the community layer. And that stack essentially serves as the foundation for the GlobaliD platform. And I think what is cool, beyond everything that you two have talked about, is that, the platform itself is agnostic, right? And so, we're going to have ideas about how to best leverage these tools and these building blocks, but, people and groups and communities can get together and find new, exciting ways to do all sorts of things, right? Whether it's, content or cause-based organizations, etc. And I think for me, that's what's really exciting. It's like, let's give people these accessible tools to empower their communities, and let's see what amazing things they can do with them. All right, well, we have, the first reference implementation with the XRP Army. That's the community, and the XRP MasterCard debit card linked to that community. We obviously have a lot to look forward to. What are you two most excited about in terms of, what's next?
Do you want to go first, Laura?
No.
Okay. I'll go. So if we go down this idea maze again of identity, privacy, trust, and all the way down to community. Turns out there are some people that are having a lot of fun thinking about identity and community. And those are the very, very few people in the world doing things with DAOs, or decentralized autonomous organizations. For those of you who know what a DAO is, think of like the internet in like 1997 and people working on like, I don't know, some sort of protocol that was introduced like 10 years later in 2007. There are people sort of doing fun stuff and experimenting with identity and community. It's just very, 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 very difficult and frankly just inaccessible to the everyday person. I'm really excited about having GlobaliD play in that space with our sovereignty stack, because right now a DAO, which is some sort of representation of a decentralized community in the crypto space or in the blockchain space, the blockchain space is very self-referential right now, which means blockchain people are playing with other blockchain people because it's just easy right now. I'm really excited about breaking that self-referential cycle and bringing this idea of a decentralized, or just idea of a group of people that are interested in the same things to allow them to congregate and build community in the world that we live in today. Whether that's a community of local merchants in a city, or a community of fans of a specific soccer or football or basketball team to be able to do things together and make decisions and vote. I cannot wait for us to start bringing, this world that very few select nerdy people, dare I say, are playing with into like the everyday sort of fabric of life. I pee my pants out of excitement thinking about that. You can quote me.
I love it.
I will. On my side, I think what I'm most excited about is continuing to learn from the community that we've built. I think it's been really fascinating getting all these people who are interested in the XRP card and members of the XRP Army onto our platform and just hearing their feedback. They've been very vocal about what they like, they dislike. They've been giving us suggestions and ideas. We've had people who are part of the community who are interested in partnering with GlobaliD, and it's really taking us into cool new directions and giving us cool new ideas that we hadn't previously considered. And we love having those voices outside our little echo chamber to help kind of create value and make our product really useful for them. It's been awesome to hear from the community, and I look forward to hearing more.
To your point, Laura, I've been working with GlobaliD for quite a while now, almost 5 years, and this
Wow.
XRP
I'm not even that old, man.
project, it's essentially the first time we've really been able to be on the ground and add value to real people, seeing all these people engage and join the community. And, part of that was just building this platform brick by brick, building it the right way, building it in a way that empowers individuals, protects them, and gives them control of their destiny. That takes time. So to get to this place, to see all these people excited about using the product, that's been super exciting, super rewarding, and like you said, there's so much we can learn from it as well. Paul, to your point, it sounds like we're at the early stages of maybe the next chapter of the internet, and that sounds exciting. And at the early days, it's always a bit niche. It's always the nerds and the geeks and the weirdos like you two, and then eventually we'll see. But I'm excited to see where things go. And any final thoughts?
I'm excited to just get the party started and continue growing. Let's go.
Yeah. Let's go. All right.
Let's go.
Thank you both for your time. We'll see you all on the next one. Bye-bye.